Now recording.
Okay. That's the second time today I've gotten to hear Craig.
I saw that you were in one of our Discords doing a recording thing. I don't know if you saw I adjusted the user limit so no one could interrupt you.
No, I did not, but thank you. Hi everybody. It's Wednesday, my dudes. I don't know what to do here. It's a different day for me. I don't know how to
welcome
fix
to
this.
Collection Blighty.
Hold on, you meant to go, hi, this is three guys from Game Club. Tim, what day of the week is this being released?
It's the one after Tuesday, the
Oh.
one before Thursday.
Wait, what day is that?
That is Wednesday, my dudes.
Now play that fucking jingle.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
There you go. There's your jingle.
There's your
There
intro.
we go. All right, hooray, guys! It's a Wednesday, and the Game Club's here
Yeah, it's weird.
weird.
on a Wednesday after
Feels
2 o'clock.
dirty. What's
Yeah.
happening?
I normally don't get
Yeah.
to see this part of the recording area on Wednesdays. It's very different. Let me tell you.
We put up a lot of British flags.
Yeah, yeah. I feel very alienated right now.
What
Slade's
we do,
wearing a British flag over his shoulders is very jarring.
we display the vases that we've colonized from different countries over the years.
Yeah, and then we drink tea out of those vases
Yeah.
This is a
and
stupid intro.
serve each other beans on toast.
Anyways, hi. Obviously, we're here on the wrong day for normal Game Club.
Why is
'cause
that?
we have a special episode. So about 2 weeks ago, I saw on Twitter where Nick Calandra, the editor-in-chief of Second Wind, was like, "Hey, if you're a media outlet and would like to play Starstruck Vagabond early before it comes out, fill this out." So I told Joey, "Hey, could you fill this out, please?" And apparently, we're big enough to do that. So we got our first, not NDA, what's the name of it? Embargo.
Embargo.
For a game that we got 2 weeks early to play, Starstruck Vagabond by the one, the only Yahtzee Croshaw.
Very exciting to be under an embargo for something.
Yeah, this is like the coolest thing I think so far that's happened to the podcast is to get a game early.
I don't know. I got to see you fall out of a chair. That was pretty fun.
That was pretty great.
Well, I'm glad y'all like that better than the game. All right, review's over. Thanks, everybody.
Look, if the audience want to see the video of that, you'll be under embargo for 3 weeks.
Until one of us remembers where to find that video. If only we had the video.
If
I'd
only
be
we had the
dreaming.
video.
Yeah. Thank God we don't.
Audience
what I will
animate
say
that.
is, yeah, someone animate that. That would be great.
Yeah.
What I will say is, at time of release, this is the 22nd of May. This game isn't actually out until the 24th of May. So major spoilers for the game. But Slade's doing the intro. It's his thing.
Yeah, so major spoilers for Starstruck Vagabond. This game will release on the 24th at 10 a.m. CST with a 20% discount. The game will be otherwise regular priced $24.99.
Or whatever that is in other money.
I think in pounds that should be like $20.
Try that again, Slade.
20
in pounds,
quid.
that will be $20. Nice one. Can tell it's early for Slade.
It's very early. It's very early. So normally, I guess we'll treat this like a regular episode of the Game Club. We start with a question for the guys, and I have one. Which silent protagonist, if they could speak, would you like to have a conversation with?
I think the microchip from Space Station Silicon Valley.
I'm so glad you said something dumb, Tim.
What do you mean dumb? The thing's had experience in being all kinds of animals. Can you imagine what that would be like?
Joey,
Yeah.
who would you like to talk to?
I don't know. The only silent protagonist I can think of is either Link or Gordon Freeman, and both of them sound like really boring bitches. So I'm also going to say the microchip, but because it's a microchip in it, I'd love to see how it would have a conversation.
I was thinking about Chell from Portal, who you play as, because she can speak. She just refuses to not speak.
She refuses to not speak.
Or she refuses to
She's
speak.
always
It's
speaking.
early. It's early. She
Formed to
refuses
gas,
to
forced to
speak.
pipe down.
The loudest silent protagonist you've ever met.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It's early. Leave me alone. Alrighty, so let's talk a bit about Starstruck Vagabond. Just to read directly from it. After accidentally freezing themselves for 2 millennia, your protagonist wakes up in an unknown galaxy with nothing to their name but a beat-up old ship, which you must make a living delivering crates across different star systems, quadrants of the map. As you explore more and more of the galaxy, picking up a ragtag crew of misfits, you become like a nice little ship, I guess, running together. There's a mystery going on at the center of the universe where a giant purple egg has appeared and nobody can figure out why. The two main authorities, I think I'm saying this right, but the Amalga and Oniris, which I know I'm saying Oniris correctly because I've heard that one said before, are unable to work together to stop them. And as you go around delivering packages, you are figuring out the mystery for yourself. Just as once again, so you know, the minimum requirements for this game is Windows Vista or greater. At least
you can play this on your fridge.
Yeah, at least a 2 gigahertz processor and 500 megs of storage. The recommended just says 2 gigs of RAM. So I guess you can play it on a RAM stick.
It's not the kind of thing that you'd see on Will It Run Doom, but like it's pretty close with a modern lens.
Yeah. Alrighty, and I would like to go to initial thoughts of Tim.
I found it really boring, and I'm really sad to say that because it's the first thing we've done under embargo, and I really did not like it. I got 30 minutes in and managed to softlock myself, forcing me to start the game over again at one point.
We should say that the review copy came with a disclaimer that this is not going to be the fully ironed out. There will be another patch before release for anything like this. So
absolutely, and I imagine this is the kind of thing that will be fixed because if I could stumble across it as easily as I did, I'll get into what I did in just a minute. But if I could reach that soft lock as easily as I did, I imagine it's been picked up in like a much more in-depth playtest session. So. Right. To give you an idea of what I did, fairly early on in the game, you're doing deliveries and you get a call from your alien lawyer who says, hey, I need you to go to this place and get a warp drive once you've made enough money. No problem. I was traveling around the galaxy, dropping off crates, and eventually I had enough money to go and install the warp drive, but I need to go and get it from this other planet. No problem. I thought, like every other planet in the galaxy, it would have some sort of loading bay. It did not. So when I came down to the planet with a bunch of stuff ready to sell, because I've been salvaging ships as I go, I thought to myself, oh, I'll just pop down, grab the equipment, and then fly back to a different port or whatever and do my upgrade. That was not the case. There was no port, and because I had come down to the planet, left, the warp drive had despawned and would not come back.
Oh,
so yeah, so that's a really obvious way to get stuck very early. So I must have spent maybe 20 minutes reloading the game, leaving the planet, coming back, turning my Steam Deck because I played this all on Steam Deck, Steam Corner.
I did too. I played it all on Steam Deck as well.
And it was frustrating, but not the end of the world because I feel like a lot of that 30 minutes for me was just spent feeling out what a lot of the systems are. So I was able to just kind of breeze back through it when I was playing it. Not my biggest gripe. My biggest gripe is just I don't, and maybe it's just me, I don't get it. I understand the concept of you are delivering packages to upgrade your ship. And I didn't know there was an egg in the middle of the universe. That's a different thing. But the whole time I was thinking, to what end? Because all I'm doing is earning money to buy upgrades for my ship so I can deliver crates faster. And I understand it's a loop, it's a gameplay loop for sure, but I don't think it's a very satisfying one.
You are missing out on so much.
I'm sure I
Yeah.
am. I'm sure I am because I know you put a lot more time into this than I did.
I have a lot to tell you about.
But like I just found it really, really dull. And maybe it's a case of this kind of game just isn't for me. And I'm perfectly willing to hold my hands up to that. But it it just didn't really register all too well with me. Because like when you're flying between planets within these galaxies, you've got a mini game where you're basically moving left to right and trying to get into what is basically an airstream so you can
Right.
go faster. But then what will occasionally happen is you'll hit asteroids or debris or whatever, and your ship will become dirty or damaged, and you have to go and clean it using the same 3 tools, and it just felt like a lot of busy work, and I guess that's why I didn't click with it. I it's I just I didn't like the monotony of the tasks, and that's what it felt like to me. I'm sure way later on when you've got this elite star cruiser or whatever, it's a lot more fun, but it feels like there is a lot of build up to get to that point.
All right. Joey.
I didn't think it was boring. I probably played about the same amount as you, Tim, 3 or 4 hours. I upgraded the ship a couple of times. Would have no way whatsoever say that I had anything near end game ship. I really liked it. I thought it was cute. I thought the art direction style was great. The alien lawyer was my favorite because he's a little bit pathetic, which I really liked. He gave me a serious Rick and Morty character vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys got that. But I think that the story was solid enough. Like, you're frozen for, is it 2,000 years?
Yeah.
And you wake up and everything's like, nothing is like you remember it, like fairly solid. You're in a world as a player that you don't know anything about. So your player and your character react and have the same perspective of it. I am surprised that you found it monotonous because I remember you enjoyed Stardew Valley. And I'm not saying this is exactly the same as Stardew Valley, but I think it takes a lot of the gameplay style of it in that the cleaning the ship, the repairing the broken stuff, all I think that's there for is to give you a sense of ownership of your spaceship. And I feel like in those mini games where you're flying the ship, you try so much harder to avoid the asteroids or avoid the dust clouds in space because it means that you're damaging your ship. And whether you're doing that so you don't have to clean it or you're doing it because you have some pride in the ship that you're flying, I think it just worked. I think it was good. I think I only got one of the what they call the allies, the people on your ship.
Your ship companion or ship
Yeah,
mates.
sorry, the companions. Yeah, that's it. And the companion was funny. It was the invisible guy. Tim, did you get that guy?
I didn't get that guy. I got someone else, but I did get a companion. He was funny. The characters are well written and they got good dialogue.
Okay, but yeah, I don't think it was boring. I think it was simplistic in places, but I don't think it needed to be complicated. I think that the tutorial was in depth enough. It was a little bit long, the tutorial for me, but that's okay. Once I got over it, I felt like I was in control of the world I was in and being able to manage it properly. I did take like a week-long break from playing it. I started it and didn't pick it up for another week, and then was playing it, and Slade had to tell me, "Oh well, you remember in the tutorial this, this, and this." I was like, "Oh yeah, of course, I'll pick that up and carry on." But no, I thought that the world, the character customization, the companions, the story were all interesting. I like that it's a roguelike. I didn't know it was a roguelike when I first booted it up. I thought everyone had their first galaxy as Pisky 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
I only found out that was not the case when I was talking to Slade yesterday. So I think it lends itself to a game that you can talk a lot about with your friends. And I think when it comes out at that $20 price point, I don't think you can go far wrong. I think actually, if you enjoy Stardew Valley, I would say that this is probably a game that isn't as complex mechanically as Stardew Valley, but probably would scratch that itch if you're a little bit bored of it.
Alrighty. This game, yeah, I loved it. I don't see what you get into the mundane routine, which I don't mean that in a negative way, like Stardew Valley. You know, in Stardew, you get up, you water your crops, harvest what you need to, go to town, talk to you 3 or 4 people. Same thing with this. The first thing, I am still in awe that we got a code for this game.
Yeah.
I am wild about that. I did have a couple crashes and bugs. It locked my Steam Deck at one point, where I had to like hard restart it. So I wasn't, without that. I got to the last quadrant, so I'm about at the end of the game. So
Wow.
I've played it quite a lot.
Do you know how many hours it was? Because I know that one of our problems was that it calculated
No
our
idea.
hours strangely. So.
No idea. So it says I have like 500 and something hours in that, and I have not put that amount of time.
No. We haven't had the game that long.
Yeah, exactly. It says like nearly 600 hours. But there's a couple things that there are references to Yahtzee's other work. For example, Zoobs, the little squishy things that you could board somebody's ship. That's something else to talk about as you're flying. You won't only find derelict ships with salvage aboard, but sometimes you have to go fix somebody else's ship. Either the ship is broken, or you have to go kill some Zoobs. They're some little squishy gel-like characters that you pick up a crate and drop it on them. Or if you can time it right, you can squish them in the door of the ship, which is much more satisfying.
But much harder to do.
Yeah. Zoobs are a reference to the Galaxies trio or series of books, the trilogy from that. Same with Oniris. They're also a part of the Will Save, Leave the Galaxy. And quantum tunneling is also a little nod to that as well. There's a lot of ship upgrades to get. There's 100 upgrade pieces in total that you can get in your playthrough. I got a bunch of them. To give you an idea, at one point, when you finally get the last quadrant, you get guns on your ship. So that adds another element of you flying around. Is that not only are you dodging asteroids, sometimes you have to fit. I have to run into junk balls. That'll be like an objective in certain places to break them up. And then there are little egg ships in the Delta Quadrant that you have to shoot down before they shoot you down. So this game builds layers. It's an onion. It's one of those that we talk about where it just stacks and stacks. And then there's different cargo types, which I don't know if y'all got to. So there's the regular boxes, there's irradiated boxes, and then there's refrigerated boxes. And there's rules to those. So there's like the little power lines on your floor in the ship. The refrigerated boxes have to be on one of those so that they stay powered on at all times. The irradiated boxes can't be stored next to any other crates. And then, the regular boxes you can put wherever you want to. So suddenly it goes back to that bit, my favorite bit of Resident Evil 4, the management of where everything goes. And as your ship gets bigger, there's like certain rooms. Like I had a little farm on my ship at one point, so I didn't need like the air canisters. There was a spot where people could make food. There's another room for like hanging pictures, but all this would just get filled with crates because once you're in like the third quadrant, it'll be like, hey, can you take these 20 crates from here to these 4 solar systems?
I feel like it's one of those games that if you get into, you will put hundreds of hours into.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that, but there's no like time pressure, which I really, really like of you getting, your job done. It's not like, hey, you need to get here right now. It's like, just, get the crates there when you can get them there. And it also doesn't matter which crates you drop off. So just so I didn't have to worry about them spoiling, I would always drop off the refrigerated crates first, get them off my ship. And then, in case I hit an asteroid and the power goes out, doesn't matter.
That's weirdly sensible from you, Slade.
Yeah, well, there's punish. You get less money if your the refrigerated crates run out of power. So there is like a rule to that.
Nice.
So I had I had 5 companions in my ship, which I've written down. I had Hole, who's the invisible guy we talked about. His ability is that if you refuel when you're aiding a distress call, you get 20% more of your fuel, which is pretty cool. I had Magu, who I found out later is a sex robot.
Yeah, found out later.
I found out in the Delta
later that evening, am I right?
I found out in the Delta Quadrant that she's a sex robot. She occasionally drops you money, which is nice. It's always good. Sarge, who's literally a first-person shooter protagonist. What's nice about him, because we've all talked about cleaning and maintenance of the ship, when he's on board, the ship becomes dirty slower.
That's good.
So you can go through a lot more like clouds and everything like that. So you're spending less time watching stuff on the ship. I had Red, who was a big Star
That's what I
Trek.
had.
Yeah, he's a big Star Trek clone joke, is what that is. So he is a clone, and he doesn't know it, but at one point he's talking to his dad, and his dad like, you need to go do what all red shirts do. Got a little chuckle.
Mm.
Funny, it's good.
But when you have him,
There's that old joke of Star Trek where the red people are like, "Hey, I love this color. Wait, you've got blue. What does that mean?"
but if you have Red on board, you get a 25% chance of authorizing 2 sectors at one time, which is nice. And then I had Melinda, who was an Oniris employee, and whenever you drop off a survey box from Oniris, which is what you do on uninhabited planets, I got 20% more money
Slade
for
was
doing
rolling
that.
in it.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we didn't speak much about was the distress calls. So
Yes.
they
I had
sorry,
one more
go on,
note.
Slade.
Yeah, I have one more note. The star map for figuring out where you need to go to drop off stuff, because there's like 100 like there's a bunch. But this fixed my problem I had with Dredge, where I was like, where the hell is that again? When looking at the map, trying to sort it out. Just a little icon. That's all I needed.
Little red circle. Good to
Little,
go.
little red circle, or just like a package with an arrow down and a package with an arrow up. You know, it's
Yep.
like, yeah, that's all I wanted. Just something like, it doesn't even
Intuitive
tell you the
UI
planet.
design.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you the planet. It just says, hey, it's over here. I can sort it out from there. But yeah.
Good.
Other than that, the only other thing we haven't talked about, Tim was talking about the same 3 things. So you have an open hand, you have a welder, a hose, and then you have a wrench. You're going to use those 3 items a bunch to do different things on your ship and other people's ships, which goes back to Joey's distress calls.
Yes. So when you're flying the ship, and we need to get onto flying the ship as well, because that's quite cool. You'll get a little icon in the corner, and it's just a yellow circle whether you need to fly left or right to catch the distress signal. And there's a bunch of different reasons people are calling you. One of them that Slade mentioned is squashing your fun little bugs, or fixing up the ship. Or I started to ignore them, the distress calls. I always went to the derelict ships. They're the only ones I bothered with, because you could fly in there and find some pretty good resources.
Yeah, so the derelict ships are nice to go to because they're just an easy way early game to get fuel, which is really needed at the beginning of the game. It becomes very easy to have it later on. That's one nice thing. And when I say this game, it's layers like an onion. Like by the time I was in the Delta Quadrant, I mean, I could go like solar system without refueling for a while, which was
That's
nice. Yeah.
But I really think that my favorite part of the game, we jump into that section of the pod, Slade. Favorite part of the game was flying the ship. When you're in the star map, you have when you go, there's 2 levels of maps. There's the high level with the quadrants that Slade's been talking about. Each solar system within that is a little square, and it will say on the side, "Oh, this solar system has 3 planets that are inhabited and with civilians, and 2 that don't." Or there'll be no planets in there, and you have to find the derelict ships or the distress calls, etc. Each one felt different, which was great because there was loads of them. But the thing I really liked was flying the ship within the solar system. So you point your ship. It shows your ship on a map. You turn it, and there's a straight line to say where you want to go. And then there's a sort of mini game that Tim alluded to earlier, where you have to dodge asteroids, hit junk, or avoid the dust clouds, etc. But I found when I was first using that the map, I was really focused on what's going on in the middle. Whereas there's it's called the ram scoop, and it's how quickly you're flying. There's a mini map in the corner that tells you what's coming up. So if you're going into an asteroid field, you get loads of warning with it. And I found that the more I was playing the game, the more I was paying attention to the UI that was around that box that's in the middle, that's literally left or right for your ship. And I felt like that was really fun and quite cathartic to fly from one side of a solar system to the other, but be in control of your ship while you do it. It really felt like you were making the journey.
Right, and the ship does have an autopilot if you hit something on accident and you need to run off to go fix it. So you don't even have to fly the ship, but flying the ship is a big one. Tim, do you have a shining light?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there was a lot of Joey just mentioned it then with some of the UI elements really enhancing the experience. I found um just to go back to the flying the ship thing, initially when you're plotting your course with the straight line going from one either ship or planet or whatever to whatever your destination is, you could almost well, I say you could almost you could see what hazards you were gonna run into on your journey, be that
Yeah.
dust clouds or junk or asteroids, and it allowed you to almost prepare in a way. Um, so, for example, if an asteroid's considerably bigger than junk in space, but it allowed you to be like, okay, well, I just need to be conscious of how much room I'm going to have to maneuver, for
Right.
example, or hey, am I going to be able to get to the jet stream in time? The only thing I wish, and I'm going to bring it back to a negative here because that's who I am this episode, but it was nice to have a mini game for flying between for flying between planets and what have you. I would really like to see a mini game for using the warp drive. It's the warp drive is a very early upgrade, and all you really get out of it is, hey, there's an animation of is basically like a ball in a cylinder, essentially just going round and round and round, being like your warp drive's ramping up. I would like to see an expansion on that, like to draw a comparison to something like to Pokemon Sun and Moon. There's a thing in that where you can go through different wormholes and dimensions um, by going through rings on like a 2D plane. So like essentially you're going through this big wormhole and you have to fly through rings. Maybe you could have it where if you go through these rings or whatever, when you're doing your warp, you use less fuel. Something like that to make it a little more like, hey, I'm gonna be more conscious of my fuel consumption, or oh, I could make it there if I'm good with the rings or whatever.
Right.
Just something like that to give it a little more well ownership, I suppose.
Well, I guess that's kind of where the maintenance comes in, like going back to adjust the rings, adjusting your fuel cells, things like that. I know
Yeah,
it's
but we've
not
got
what you're wanting, but it's like
yeah.
so when I warp to a planet, the first place I'd go is walk over to the I'd set the autopilot, walk to the back of the ship, make sure everything was good.
Yeah, I just think I'd like a little more interact. Like again, within solar systems, perfectly fine minigame, perfectly serviceable. Within warps, I was like, oh, we're going to somewhere much more different. I was just a little let down by, hey, it's an animation.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I think that if you look at sci-fi properties and the way that they do warps, the point
Hmm.
is that it's so quick that you don't really have time to react to anything.
No,
Like
especially if
I'm
you're
not
doing
I'm
like a
not
light
saying
speed jump.
I'm not saying you're wrong,
No.
but I'm just saying that I think in its defense, it would be really hard to. The point is, it's a warp. You're meant to just bang bang in there. You're in the new place.
Hmm.
So I think it'd be really hard to get something that didn't feel like it was just stapled on, because I don't think the flying does feel like it's just stapled on. It feels
No.
like although as Slade said, you can autopilot it. I think it doesn't. It feels like a core part of the game for me.
Yeah, and I don't mean to infer that the flying feels stapled on. It's definitely one of the more central mechanics of the game. To me, it's just perfectly serviceable. It's nothing exemplary.
It's quite sad.
Yeah.
For me, it's the companions. If I'm honest, the crew that you build along the way and going through and doing their stories, and finding out a bit more about them. That was a lot of fun. It was more than I expected. I was kind of irritated when I got Hole because he holds you hostage. He's an invisible man, and he claims to have an invisible gun. There is no invisible gun.
We don't know.
Don't
Well,
know that.
no, he admits to it. When he
Oh.
finishes quest line, he admits to it.
Could it be the rare double bluff?
It could be, but yeah, when I at first I was irritated with them, but then when I went through his story, I kind of grew to like him after that.
I quite like that in the trailer you see Sarge very briefly. I really wanted to get Sarge for the part in the trailer where you're sitting in your cockpit and he walks out and then flies to this fortress in the space. And then you just wait, and then you just see it explode and disappear, and then he just floats back to your ship.
Yeah, I
I
did that.
really enjoyed that.
I did that with Sarge. The one in the trailer where it just says "girl," that's Magoo. I got her as my second companion.
Got you.
Yeah.
Slade went for the anime girl. Shock
Apparently,
horror.
apparently, they show up at random. You don't really have a. That's one my negative for this. I wish there was a way to kind of pick and choose who you got. but
Mm.
I think
I don't know. I think it's more organic if you don't.
Yeah.
But I do
Be
have
the
a
nature of
negative.
roguelike.
Ooh, what's your negative, Joey?
I do have a negative. It's not a huge negative. Your character is very slow. I would like a sprint button.
I would too.
Yeah.
You level up a lot, and you like stamina bar gets enormous, kind of like in Dark Souls. I would love to just be able to sprint quickly, especially when you're planet side and you're having to run back and forth doing stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I say run. You're walking back and forth doing stuff.
I think it's a fairly minor gripe for me, especially considering the style of game that it is. And I think you're meant to take your time with it.
Yep.
But there is a point where you're like, oh, I've got so far to carry this raw, which isn't going to get me that much back to the ship. That was my main gripe.
Yeah. That's all right. Does anybody have any other thoughts before we move into scores and recommendations?
Talk about the music, Slade.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The music. It was done by the guys who did BPM. That's bullets per minute. And I think they did a good job. I kind of like the music.
I did too. I think. Did you say that there's a unique track for each quadrant?
Yes, the tracks will change for that.
So I heard. I was still in the first quadrant at the end of my time playing, and I will go back and play more. But within that first quadrant, it was good. It blended into the background enough that it didn't feel annoying. But when I did notice it, it felt very like, oh, I have been listening to this same track now for like 4 hours.
Right.
Like, great music, and I'm sure you're putting it in the start of the episode, Slade.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the audience will know how good the music is, how fun it is, but
It definitely gives like the space cowboy vibe, which
yeah.
All right. Well, like I said with that, let's do scores and recommendations. Let's rip the band-aid off. Tim.
You say rip the band-aid off. I think I'm going to give it a higher score than you're going to think. I'm giving it a 2. No, I'm kidding.
A 12.
I was
Yeah.
about to joke and say, I was about to say that.
No, I think I'm going to go with like a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
In that the game clearly wasn't for me, but it's meant for someone else, and I can see there's something to it. It feels like there's it feels like there's something there, but it's just it doesn't suit me. That's all. So I've obviously had to knock off a couple of points for again how easily I got soft locked, but I'm sure that's going to be ironed out. And yeah, the lack of sprint, and yeah, I wish there was a bit more to it, but yeah, I mean it's going to be one of these games that I could see it being on the Steam charts and being especially high on the Steam Deck charts.
Yes.
Like it's one of those games, and I think Joey's put it very well in saying that if you like Stardew Valley, it'll probably scratch that itch, but it just doesn't do it for me. So I'm going to go with a 6. I'm going to go with a recommend, kind of.
Alrighty. Joey.
Genuinely amazed that you think there isn't a lot to this game. Genuinely amazed.
I just didn't get it.
No.
I think the core gameplay there probably isn't that much to, but once you get below the surface, I think there's loads, like an obscene amount of stuff to do, speak to, collect. Yeah.
Let me put it this way.
Really surprised me.
When we played through Final Fantasy VII, Joey said, "Come back to me when I've finished the boss, and I'll see if I change my score." When this game comes out and when it's had a couple of patches for content, I would be willing to go back and give it another go.
I'll add this to a running order for later in the year. Then
Give it a year.
we'll call it Starstruck Vagabond.
Stardew Vagabond really hits the nail on the head. Okay, so I think game was good. I don't really normally like casual games. I would describe this as a very casual game. I would also describe it as a bit of a time sink, which is to its benefit. I think the music was fun, the design was fun, characters were fun. No sprint button. Come on, that's fairly fixable, right, guys? The one thing we haven't said, this game plays horribly with a mouse and keyboard.
Yes.
You need a controller.
Do not play mouse and keyboard.
I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Alrighty.
I don't generally love casual games, but I had a lot of fun with this one.
All right. And finally, for me, I had a lot of fun with it. I sunk a lot of time in it. I almost actually 100% of the first quadrant you go to, and I was like, I wonder how the story progresses. And then I started doing that, and then it dawned on me, well, this game comes out soon. I don't really want to finish it on when it's not done yet, so let's wait till then. But I'd want to go ahead and give it. There's a few things I'd like to see. There are a couple bugs, so I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I really
Nice.
What does that
enjoyed
give
it.
us as an average?
7.83 with 3 recommends.
So let's say an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bending the
I-
rules for this one.
Yeah, I'm sad because I know that my score is the thing that's bringing it down, and I feel like as an average it should be higher between us,
Right.
but I can't, as of right now, with my experience, justify bumping it up right now.
I would also like to
Yeah.
point out the difference in experience between our 2 playtimes, where Tim, you're talking about it being very surface level and shallow, and then what I described. I think a
Yeah,
little more playtime
it's-
or maybe a little more story progression would have probably
It
changed.
probably
we-
would.
Yeah.
Can we point out how much of this game almost feels like it was made for the Steam Deck? I was the only one
Yeah.
of the 3 of us that didn't play it on the Steam Deck. It
Yeah.
very much feels like a game where you can pick up and carry on where you left off when you're on a journey. Right?
It's extremely good at that. Extremely
Yeah.
good.
Do you know what? Do you know what it's a bit like? Like with your saying, hey, a bit more story progression would be good for me to maybe get my teeth more into it. Do you remember when we played Yakuza 0?
Oh
And
god,
you
no! Let's
described-
end
Oh.
the episode here.
Now, hang on. There is a point to this. You described your experience with the game as being very straightforward, very serious, and then I described all the wacky shit that I got up to.
Yeah.
It's probably it's almost like a reverse of that.
Yeah.
The main difference between this episode and that episode is Slade didn't get pegged in his playthrough.
Well, do we know that there is a sex robot?
Slade?
No comment.
No
Anyways.
comment.
Anyways, before we wrap this up and end, I would like to say thank you to Nick Calandra for sending us the code. Thank you all for letting us play it early.
Big thank you. Many kisses.
Yeah, many kisses, many hugs.
We're never getting anything early again.
no, we'll never do it again.
Or
But
we'll get a lot more things.
That's true. Depends.
Mwah.
Yeah, but thank y'all very much for thinking that we were cool enough to do that. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. It's one of the highlights of our show, I think, at least for me. When people
Yeah,
say
it
what's,
Lives.
yeah, when people say what's the highlight of the Game Club pod, I'll be like, well, this one time
That band
Oh.
count.
I fell out my chair. And with that, and with
We'll
that,
see you.
yeah,
It's not 2 weeks, is it? It's like a week and a half.
It'll be a week and a half. Yeah.
we'll see y'all in a week and a half for
for Helldivers.
Helldivers.
Yep.
is-
So Slade's not back yet.
Nope.
Yeah. Slade, go away again.
All right, I'll be gone again for another
2 weeks or something.
Yeah, for
No,
another
it's
month.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Is it really? Oh my god.
We recorded 10 weeks of content without Slade.
Oh my
Yep.
god.
Yep. So enjoy Joey and Tim.
Yeah, 2 guys from Great Britain.
All right. Bye, everybody.
There's no post-amble. Don't stick around. Love you. Bye.
Fancy taking a humorous trip down a random topic each week? You do? Well, you're in luck. Casting Views, presented by me, Dan, and a host of guests, bring you just that. With topics from the world of entertainment, science, sport, and everyday life, there's bound to be a topic that's going to inform and amuse. Catch Casting Views every Sunday on all listening platforms now.